Hi there. Welcome to the first unit of study, How to Use Psychology to Understand Human Behavior in the Workplace. This unit outlines the various streams of psychological theory from a historical perspective and highlights the contributions of each stream to our present understanding of human behavior. What is psychology? Psychology is both an applied and academic field that studies the human mind and behavior. Research in psychology seeks to understand and explain thought, emotion, and behavior. Applications of psychology include mental health treatment, performance enhancement, self-help, ergonomics, and many other areas affecting health and daily life. Why study psychology? We study psychology so that we can better understand how people take on information from the world around them, interpret that information given their background and experience, construct or reframe that interpretation to fit their own circumstances, and in terms of their preferences regarding how they think and make decisions. There are various specialty areas in psychology, the most common areas being clinical, counseling, developmental, and organizational psychology. Over the years, many branches of psychology have emerged as a result of experimentation and theoretical endeavor. These include all of the areas you can see on the slide. The branches that have contributed most to the development of the coaching movement are those of cognitive psychology, in terms of how coaches work with people to change their mindset and hence their behavior; social psychology, from the perspective that most learning occurs in social situations, that is, we learn from each other; organizational psychology, which is particularly important from an executive coaching point of view; and, to an extent, developmental psychology, which contributes to our understanding of how people learn and grow. However, by far the branch that has had the most effect on coaching methodology as we know it today is that of positive psychology. Coaches work with the positives to build on people's strengths and negate the negatives. In fact, some coaches work on building the positives alone, which brings about exceptional results. A branch of psychology that's gaining increasing attention is biopsychology. Biopsychology is a branch of psychology that analyzes how the brain and neurotransmitters influence our behaviors, thoughts, and feelings. This field can be thought of as a combination of basic psychology and neuroscience. Neuroscience is becoming increasingly popular as a way of understanding how the brain works, how it transmits information through its sensors, and how thoughts, emotions, and feelings can be harnessed to optimize our life experiences. To understand neuroscience, it's important to have a mind map of the brain and look at its four component parts. The frontal lobe, also known as the motor cortex. This portion of the brain is involved in motor skills, higher level cognition, and expressive language. The occipital lobe, also known as the visual cortex, this portion of the brain is involved in interpreting visual stimuli and information. The parietal lobe, also known as the somatosensory cortex, involved in the processing of tactile sensory information such as pressure, touch, and pain. The temporal lobe, also known as the auditory cortex, is involved in the interpretation of sounds and the language we hear. This shows how the four lobes fit together. You'll see how they join with the rest of the body via the spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord make up the central nervous system, which is important for our overall functioning. The brain transmits messages via the spinal cord to various parts of our body via the central nervous system to tell it to move our arms and legs, speak, and perform voluntary and involuntary movements. There's also the peripheral nervous system, which consists of the somatic nervous system, which controls the actions of the skeletal muscles, and the autonomic nervous system, which regulates automatic processes, such as heart rate, breathing, and blood pressure. Then there's the sympathetic nervous system, which controls the fight or flight response, which is the reflex which prepares the body to respond to danger in the environment, and then the parasympathetic nervous system, which works to bring your body back to its normal state after a fight or flight reflex. The messages to do all this are carried from the brain via what's called neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters carry information between neurons and enable chemical messages to be sent from one part of the body to the brain and vice versa. There are a variety of neurotransmitters that affect the body in different ways. For example, the neurotransmitter dopamine is involved in movement and learning. Excessive amounts of it have been associated with the onset of schizophrenia. On the other hand, too little has been associated with the onset of Parkinson's disease. A biopsychologist studies the various transmitters to determine their effects on human behavior. This is a slide of a cell showing its nucleus as well as the trailing dendrons which connect the cells. You can see how the neurotransmitters fire when they send instructions to the body. Neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain and nervous system to change structurally and functionally as a result of input from the environment. This ability allows us to adjust to our environment, for example, to recover after a road accident. Plasticity occurs on a variety of levels, ranging from cellular changes involved in learning to large-scale changes involved in cortical remapping in response to injury. The most widely recognized forms of plasticity are learning, memory, and recovery from brain damage. Many aspects of the brain remain plastic, even into adulthood. These are the faces of those scientists and psychologists who've contributed to our understanding of human behavior over the years since the mid-1800s. On the left-hand side are Pavlov and Skinner, whose work informs our understanding of behavior and how it can be changed through rewards and punishment. In the middle are Jung, Rogers, and Maslow, whose major contributions have been in terms of understanding individuals and their relationship with others, the notion of self as opposed to other. The theory of unconditional positive regard and the various stages of need within individuals were all born from these contributors. On the right-hand side are the faces of Bandura, who was most influential in terms of how we learn from others in a social situation, as well as the founders and the most recent influencers of the positive psychology movement, Csikszentmihalyi, known for his work on happiness and creativity, and Martin Seligman, known for his work on learned helplessness and authentic happiness. Much of our coaching methodology is based on the works of these famous forebears. Now, let's look at the major contributions from a theoretical standpoint, starting with behavioral theories. Behavioral theories are concerned with external observable behaviors, data collection, and behavior modification. Ivan Pavlov is renowned as the father of the stimulus response theory. He paired a dog feeding with the sound of a bell. After several episodes, the dog started to salivate at the sound of the bell alone. John Watson is known for his theory of classical and operant conditioning. His Little Albert experiment was one of the first documented experiments on how fear can be induced in a young child by pairing a loud noise with the presentation of an object, in this case a dog. Fears and phobias develop in this way. B.F. Skinner developed the Skinner box, which used operant conditioning to modify behavior using rewards and punishment. You may remember seeing videos of mice turning a wheel to receive a pellet of food. Links to some of these videos are at the appendix of your workbook. Cognitive theories focus on a person's internal state and are concerned with things like attention, perception, memory, motivation, problem-solving, decision-making, thinking, and learning. In short, how people acquire, process, and store information. Ulrich Nesser coined the term cognitive psychology in 1967 to include all processes, both conscious and imaginary, for example hallucinations, by which the sensory input is transformed, reduced, elaborated, stored, recovered, and used. By then, Carl Jung, a humanist, had already developed his theory on how uncovering one's values and beliefs and challenging them can change your mindset and therefore your behavior. Developmental theory has its origins in the late 1800s. The question at that time, and still today, is development continuous or discontinuous? Jean Piaget is known for developing his stage development theory that posits people learn and grow in stages. Erik Erikson subsequently developed a stage theory of psychosocial development, which helped generate interest and inspire research into human development throughout the lifespan, that is, from birth right through until death. Alfred Binet is renowned as the developer of the first intelligence test, a test which is still being used today in its revised form. John Dewey is considered the father of the use of psychology in education for his pioneering work on progressive education, which uses experimentation rather than an authoritarian approach to learning. Humanistic theories of psychology focus on an individual's potential and the importance of growth and self-actualization. The key proponents of this approach are Carl Jung, who is considered the founder of analytical psychology. He pioneered the notions of extroverted and introverted personality, terms which had a different meaning to how we think of them today. Archetypes and the collective unconscious were also part of his work. Jung's theory helped shape the development of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, the MBTI, which was the very first personality profiling instrument. Abraham Maslow is considered the founder of humanistic psychology. His famous framework, the hierarchy of needs, incorporates the concepts of self-actualization and peak experiences. We'll learn more about these in the next unit. Carl Rogers is renowned for his client-centered approach to understanding personality and human relationships. He coined the concept of unconditional positive regard and was instrumental in the development of values, perceptions, and beliefs about self and others, particularly the concept of individuation. Personality theories are concerned with the characteristic patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that make a person unique. Our understanding of personality started out looking at trait theories, which propose that personality is the result of internal characteristics that are genetically based, for example, intelligence and height. Gordon Allport was one of the founding figures of personality psychology. Studies then moved into type theories, which proposed that there are a limited number of personality types which are related to biological influences. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is an example of a type theory. The types in the MBTI are extroverted, introverted, sensing, intuiting, thinking and feeling, judging, and perceiving. Next came behavioral theories, which suggest that personality is the result of the interaction between the individual and the environment. We've already looked at the influence of behaviorists such as Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner. After that came humanist theories, which emphasize the importance of free will and individual experience in the development of personality. Social psychology theories focus on situations and the impact that the social environment and group interactions have on attitudes and behaviors. For example, group behavior, social perception, nonverbal behavior, conformity, aggression, and prejudice. They're also concerned with the concepts of social loafing and social facilitation. Why is social psychology important? It's important in a coaching situation because a person may commit in the coaching session and not follow through at home. So the coach needs to role play with them so they're equipped to handle negative criticism of what they plan to do differently. Remember that nobody likes to change. It upsets the current state of affairs. It creates uncertainty and potentially can cause others to have to do something different as well. Kurt Lewin is often referred to as the father of modern social psychology. His pioneering theories argue that behavior is caused by both personal characteristics and the environment. Lewin's famous theory was very simple: unfreeze, move, refreeze. That is, create a state of unrest, help the person make the changes they need to make, then support them to internalize and generalize the new behaviors into their everyday life. Leon Festinger is known for his theory of cognitive dissonance and social comparison. Cognitive dissonance is the state where a person may know the right thing to do, but his mates want him to go along with them in doing the wrong thing. This scenario plays out frequently in adolescence and can cause stress in teenagers who want to be seen as going along with their friends rather than being ostracized by them. In other words, they know what to do, but something compelling, usually socially related, stops them from doing it. Albert Bandura is well known for his Bobo doll experiment, as well as his concepts of self-efficacy and social learning. His experiment illustrated how children who view social aggression go on to be aggressive themselves, particularly when the aggressor is of the same gender. The implications of this are seen over and over again in incidents of teenager aggression as well as in domestic violence situations. Philip Zimbardo conducted a famous experiment during the early 1970s known as the Stanford Prison Experiment. It was a research experiment designed to find out about shyness, cult behavior, and heroism. However, it went horribly wrong, with prison guards taking on extreme behavior and heroism, and prisoners acting the part in a very submissive way. The experiment had to be stopped. A link to this video is at Appendix 1 of your workbook. Now, let's turn to the impact of positive psychology on coaching. The focus of positive psychology is on what's going right rather than what's going wrong. The two most prominent proponents of positive psychology are Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, a contemporary psychologist whose work covers the study of happiness and creativity, and Martin Seligman, who's considered the father of contemporary positive psychology, whose focus is on learned helplessness, in effect whether events are permanent, pervasive, and personalized, as well as the notion of pessimism versus optimism, and the concept of authentic happiness. Authentic happiness is the concept coined by Martin Seligman to describe a state of flow in which people have a positive emotion and every day write down at bedtime 3 things that went well and why. They're engaged and preferentially using their highest strengths to perform the tasks that they would perform anyway. In terms of relationships, they fine-tune the positive elements of each relationship. Their life has meaning. They feel as though they belong to and serve something bigger than themselves. And they view achievement as a result of their determination to succeed, which they believe is far more important than intelligence when it comes to getting the desired outcome. In conclusion, the contributions of scientists and psychologists throughout the ages to our understanding of human behavior from a coaching perspective is when the client has a positive attitude, contributes positively to his/her life, family, work, and community, accepts who they are and who others are, and provides whatever support they can to those around them, and takes responsibility for their actions. These are the behaviors that, as a coach, you want to support in your client. The behaviors that you want to call, which do not serve your client well, are denial, when there's a problem they don't step up to address; justification, when they try to justify their actions as a way to excuse their behavior; blame, when they blame others for their own faults; quitting, when they give up and walk away when the going gets tough. As a coach, you should call these behaviors in a gentle way at first, and then more strenuously if necessary, to help the client discover what's holding them back from achieving their potential and becoming the best person they can possibly be. That's all for now. In the next unit, we'll talk about how you can help people make the changes they need to make in their life. Unit 2 is about using psychological models to motivate clients to change.